My name is Max, and I'm a mechanic at Johnson's Auto Repair in Denver, Colorado. 5 years ago, I met Kimberly at a small coffee shop near the University of Colorado, where she was studying to become a therapist. She had this infectious laugh and a way of making even the most mundane stories sound fascinating. When she talked about her dream of opening her own practice, her eyes would light up like stars. I fell for her that first day when she spilled coffee on my work shirt and spent 10 minutes apologizing while trying to clean it off with napkins. We moved in together after 8 months, and for 4 years and 4 months, I thought we had built something unbreakable. She would wait up for me when I worked late shifts, always with some terrible reality TV show queued up and a bowl of popcorn ready. I would listen to her practice sessions for her therapy board exams, playing the role of difficult patience while she tried not to laugh at my terrible acting. As our 5th anniversary approached, I knew I had to do something special. Kimberly had mentioned Serenity exactly 17 times in the past year. I kept count in my phone notes because I'm that kind of guy. It's this upscale restaurant downtown, where you need reservations a month in advance, and where a single meal costs more than I make in a week. But seeing her face light up every time she passed by their window made every extra overtime shift worth it. I worked doubles for 3 weeks straight, my hands stained permanently black from motor oil, my back aching from hunching over engines all day. My boss, Jerry, even commented that I was becoming a workaholic. But I had a goal. On October 15th, exactly 1 month before our anniversary, I made the call. Serenity Restaurant, this is Maria speaking. Hi, I'd like to make a reservation for November 15th, Saturday evening. I'm sorry, sir, but we're completely booked through December. Would you like me to put you on our cancellation list? My heart sank. Please. It's for my anniversary. 5 years. Something in my voice must have gotten to her because she paused. Hold on, let me check something. After what felt like an eternity, she came back. We had a cancellation for 7 p.m. on November 15th. It's our window table, the most romantic spot in the restaurant. The deposit is $200, non-refundable. $200. That was groceries for a month. But I could hear Kimberly's voice in my head, describing the view of downtown Denver from their window. I'll take it. For 3 weeks, I kept the secret. Every time Kimberly mentioned the restaurant, I had to bite my tongue to keep from spoiling the surprise. I even drove by the place during my lunch break, just to make sure it was as perfect as she described. Through the window, I could see couples sharing desserts, men in suits raising champagne glasses, women laughing behind their hands. Soon, that would be us. On Thursday, November 13th, I couldn't contain my excitement anymore. Kimberly had just gotten home from the clinic where she worked part-time while finishing her certification. She looked tired, more tired than usual lately, but I attributed it to the stress of her upcoming final exams. Kim, I have a surprise for our anniversary, I said, practically bouncing on my feet as she kicked off her heels. She was scrolling through her phone and barely looked up. Oh, right, the anniversary. The way she said it, like it was something she had forgotten, should have been my first red flag. But love makes you blind to red flags, doesn't it? I got us a table at Serenity. The window table. That got her attention. She looked up, and for a moment, I saw a flash of something. Excitement? Guilt? I couldn't tell. Max, that's really sweet. I know how much you've wanted to go there. I worked extra shifts to afford it. It's going to be perfect. She set her phone down and walked over to me, but instead of the hug I expected, she put her hands on my shoulders and looked serious. Actually, Max, I need to tell you something. Jessica organized this trip to Vegas for this weekend. The girls have been planning it for weeks, and I can't back out now. The words hit me like a wrench to the gut. But it's our anniversary. Our 5th anniversary. I know, and I'm sorry, but Jessica already booked everything. Rachel took time off work. Madison flew in from Phoenix specifically for this trip. I can't let them down. But you're letting me down, I said, and I hated how pathetic I sounded. That's when she said it. That's when Kimberly looked me dead in the eye and said the words that would replay in my head for months. You don't have the right to tell me what I should do because we're not married. The silence that followed was deafening. In 5 years, she had never, not once, thrown our unmarried status in my face. We had talked about marriage, made plans, looked at rings online together. I had a ring hidden in my sock drawer, had been carrying it around for 6 months, waiting for the perfect moment to propose. And now she was using our unmarried status as a weapon against me. Kim, I just wanted us to celebrate together. I already put down a $200 deposit. We can celebrate when I get back. Maybe they'll let you move the reservation. But I could see in her eyes that she had already checked out of this conversation. She had made her decision, and nothing I said was going to change her mind. Fine, I said, because what else could I say? Have fun in Vegas. Saturday morning, I drove her to the airport. Denver International is about a 40-minute drive, and we barely spoke the entire way. She was texting constantly, her phone buzzing with messages from her friends. At least, I assumed they were from her friends. Jessica is freaking out about her outfit, she said at one point, showing me a photo of a sparkly dress. But the message was from someone named Ryan in her contacts. I only caught a glimpse, but it was enough to plant a seed of doubt. Who's Ryan? I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. Oh, he's this new therapist at the clinic. Really smart guy. We've been consulting on some difficult cases together. At the departure gate, she kissed me goodbye, but it felt perfunctory, like kissing a relative at a family reunion. I'll call you when we land, she promised. She didn't call when they landed. She sent a text at 11 p.m. Made it safe. Vegas is crazy. Talk tomorrow. That was it. For the entire weekend, that was all the communication I got from the woman I had been planning to spend the rest of my life with. I spent Saturday evening at home, staring at the reservation confirmation email from Serenity. I thought about calling to cancel, getting my deposit back, but something stopped me. Instead, I went alone. The hostess looked confused when I showed up by myself. I'm sorry, sir, but your reservation was for 2 people. My girlfriend had to cancel last minute, I explained, feeling ridiculous. She seated me at the window table anyway, probably out of pity. I ordered the cheapest thing on the menu and sat there for 2 hours, watching couples around me share intimate conversations and anniversary toasts. The view was everything Kimberly had described, the city lights twinkling below, the mountains silhouetted against the darkening sky. It should have been magical. Instead, it felt like a funeral for our relationship. When Kimberly came home Monday evening, something fundamental had shifted. She had always been affectionate, the type to curl up next to me on the couch while I watched sports or worked on crossword puzzles. Now she sat on the opposite end, scrolling through her phone with a secretive smile that made my stomach turn. How was Vegas? I asked. Fun. You know how Vegas is. What happens there stays there. She laughed at her own joke, but it sounded hollow. What did you guys do? The usual. Saw some shows, gambled a little, went to some clubs. Jessica lost $200 on blackjack and cried about it for an hour. Her answers were vague, rehearsed. In 5 years, Kimberly had never been able to tell a story without including every single detail. She would describe the color of the napkins, the name of the waiter, what everyone wore, what they ordered. This condensed version wasn't her style at all. Did you take any pictures? Oh, you know me. I'm terrible at remembering to take photos. But I knew she wasn't terrible at taking photos. Her Instagram was full of perfectly curated shots of everything from her morning coffee to sunset walks. Yet when I checked her social media, there were no photos from Vegas. Not a single one. Over the next few weeks, the distance between us grew wider. Kimberly started working late constantly, claiming that the clinic was overwhelmed with new patients. She would come home after 9 p.m., exhausted and irritable, claiming she had grabbed dinner with colleagues to discuss cases. Who are you with tonight? I'd ask, trying to sound casual. Just some people from work. You don't know them. But I started paying attention to the names she dropped. Ryan came up a lot. Ryan had this interesting perspective on trauma therapy. Ryan thinks I should apply for that advanced certification program. Ryan knows this great little restaurant downtown. One evening, about 3 weeks after Vegas, I decided to surprise her at work. I stopped by the clinic with her favorite Thai food, thinking we could have dinner together during her break. The receptionist looked confused when I asked for Kimberly. I'm sorry, but Dr. Martinez left at 5 p.m. today. She had a consultation downtown. It was 7:30 p.m. Kimberly had texted me at 6 p.m., saying she would be working until at least 9. I sat in my truck outside the clinic for 20 minutes, the Thai food getting cold beside me, trying to make sense of what the receptionist had told me. Maybe she had been confused. Maybe Kimberly was at a different location. Maybe there was a perfectly reasonable explanation. But deep down, I knew better. That night, when Kimberly came home at 9:15, I asked her about her evening. Exhausting. We had this really difficult case that required a team consultation. I barely had time for a sandwich. I could have confronted her then. Could have told her that I knew she had left work at 5. Could have asked her to explain the discrepancy. But something held me back. Maybe it was cowardice. Maybe it was the last desperate hope that I was wrong, that there was an innocent explanation for everything I was noticing. Instead, I started paying closer attention. Kimberly had always been protective of her phone, but now it was practically glued to her hand. She would take it with her to the bathroom, keep it face down during dinner, and if it buzzed while we were together, she would quickly silence it without checking the message. One morning, while she was in the shower, her phone rang on the nightstand. The caller ID said Ryan Work. I didn't answer it, but I noticed that he was calling at 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning. What kind of work consultation happened at 7 a.m. on the weekend? I started doing things I had never done in 5 years of being with Kimberly. I checked our cell phone bill online and saw dozens of calls and texts to a number I didn't recognize. I looked through her coat pockets when she was sleeping and found restaurant receipts for places we had never been together. I felt like a paranoid stalker, but I couldn't stop myself. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening in early December. Kimberly had said she was having dinner with the team to celebrate finishing a big case. She left at 6 p.m., dressed nicer than she usually dressed for work colleagues, wearing perfume I had bought her for her birthday. At 10 p.m., I decided to drive downtown to clear my head. I wasn't looking for her, I swear. I was just driving aimlessly, trying to figure out what was happening to us. But as I turned onto 17th Street, I saw them. Kimberly and a man I didn't recognize were walking out of Romano's, an intimate Italian restaurant about 6 blocks from her clinic. They weren't just walking together. His hand was on the small of her back, guiding her toward a blue Honda Civic. She was laughing at something he had said, the kind of laugh she used to reserve for me. I pulled into a parking space and watched as he opened the passenger door for her. Before she got in, she stood on her tiptoes and kissed him. Not a friendly peck on the cheek or a professional kiss on both cheeks. A real kiss. A kiss that lasted long enough for me to understand that my 5-year relationship was over. I sat in my truck for 10 minutes after they drove away, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Everything made sense now. Vegas. The late nights. The phone calls. The distance. All of it. But instead of confronting her that night, I made a decision that surprised even me. I was going to find out everything before I said a word. The next day, I called in sick to work and drove to Kimberly's clinic. I parked across the street and waited. At 11:30 a.m., the blue Honda Civic pulled up, and the same man from the night before got out. He was tall, maybe 6 feet 2 inches, with dark hair and the kind of confident walk that came from having everything go your way in life. He was wearing a suit that probably cost more than I made in a month. I watched him walk into the clinic like he owned the place. This had to be Ryan. That afternoon, I did something I'm not proud of. I followed them. When Kimberly left work at 5 p.m., she got into the Honda Civic, and I followed them to a coffee shop in Capitol Hill. They sat at a corner table, holding hands across the surface like teenagers. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could see the way she looked at him. It was the way she used to look at me. They spent 2 hours at that coffee shop. 2 hours of animated conversation, laughter, and touches that were definitely not professional. When they finally left, they didn't go back to the clinic or to our apartment. They went to a hotel, the Marriott downtown. I watched them walk in together, and I knew they weren't going up to discuss therapy techniques. I called Jessica that night. If anyone would know the truth about Vegas, it would be her. Hey Jess, it's Max. Can we talk for a minute? Sure, what's up? But there was something guarded in her voice, like she had been expecting this call. I need to ask you about the Vegas trip. Who all went? The pause was long enough to confirm my worst suspicions. Max, I think you should talk to Kimberly about this. Jessica, please. I saw her tonight with some guy named Ryan. I just need to know if he was in Vegas with you guys. She sighed heavily. Yes. Ryan went with us. But Max, it's complicated. What's complicated about it? Either she's cheating on me or she's not. She didn't plan for it to happen. None of us did. But Ryan had booked the same hotel, and they started talking at the hotel bar, and what? And they spent the weekend together. I'm sorry, Max. We all thought she was going to tell you when we got back. How long has this been going on? She met him at the clinic about 2 months ago. But nothing happened until Vegas, I swear. 2 months. 2 months of Ryan thinks this, and Ryan said that. 2 months of her pretending to care about our anniversary, while planning a romantic getaway with another man. Does everyone know? Max, does everyone know? Yeah, most of the group knows. We were all there, and it was pretty obvious what was happening. So not only had Kimberly betrayed me, but all of our mutual friends had watched it happen and said nothing. They had all smiled to my face at parties and gatherings while knowing that my girlfriend was sleeping with someone else. Why didn't anyone tell me? It wasn't our place. And honestly, we thought she would end things with you after Vegas. When she didn't. I don't know, Max. I guess we all assumed you knew and were okay with it. Okay with it. They thought I was okay with my girlfriend having an affair because I hadn't confronted her about it. The depth of my humiliation was staggering. I thanked Jessica and hung up, then sat in my kitchen staring at the wall for 3 hours. When Kimberly came home at midnight, claiming she had been at a late therapy session, I almost broke down and confronted her right then. But something stopped me. I had a better idea. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a detective in my own relationship. I followed them to restaurants, hotels, and even to Ryan's apartment, a luxury high-rise downtown that probably cost 3 times our rent. I took photos of them together, not because I needed evidence, but because I needed to convince myself that what I was seeing was real. I learned that Ryan was 32 years old, recently divorced, and made 6 figures as a senior therapist at a private practice. He drove a new car, wore expensive clothes, and could afford to take Kimberly to all the places she had always wanted to go, but I couldn't afford. I also learned that their affair had become completely brazen. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. They had lunched together every day, left work at the same time, and spent most evenings at his apartment. The only reason Kimberly was still coming home to me was probably because she hadn't figured out how to end our relationship without looking like the villain. But the worst part wasn't the cheating itself. The worst part was how normal everything seemed at home. Kimberly would come back from spending hours with Ryan and sit on our couch, watching TV with me like nothing had happened. She would ask me about my day at work, tell me stories about her difficult patients, and even initiate physical intimacy occasionally, probably to keep up appearances. The cognitive dissonance was driving me insane. How could she compartmentalize like that? How could she kiss me goodnight after spending the evening with another man? On December 20th, exactly 5 weeks after I discovered the affair, I made my decision. But I wasn't going to confront Kimberly with tears and accusations. I wasn't going to give her the opportunity to lie to my face or make excuses or try to manipulate me into forgiving her. I was going to handle this my way. I called Serenity restaurant and made another reservation. Friday, December 22nd, 7 p.m. The same window table where I had sat alone on our anniversary. This time, I made sure Kimberly would be there. Kim, I want to make up for our ruined anniversary, I told her on Wednesday evening. I made reservations at Serenity for Friday night. Just the 2 of us. She looked surprised. Really? That's so sweet, Max. But I think I might have plans with Jessica on Friday. Check your calendar. If you're free, I'd really like to do this. She made a show of checking her phone. Actually, I think I can move things around. Jessica will understand. I knew she would cancel whatever she had planned with Ryan. The guilt was probably eating her alive, and this would be her chance to assuage it by giving me one romantic evening before she destroyed our relationship. Friday evening, I put on my best suit, the navy one I had worn to her graduation from the therapy program 3 years earlier. I picked up Kimberly at exactly 6:30 p.m., and she looked beautiful. She was wearing the black dress I had bought her last Christmas. Her hair was perfectly styled, and she was wearing the diamond earrings I had given her for her birthday. Looking at her, it was easy to remember why I had fallen in love with her. But it was also easy to remember the photos I had taken of her holding hands with Ryan just 2 days earlier. You look amazing, I told her, and meant it. Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself. She squeezed my hand, and for a moment, I wondered if I was making a mistake. Maybe we could work through this. Maybe she would choose me over Ryan if I gave her the chance. But then I remembered the hotel. I remembered the way she had lied to my face for 2 months. I remembered sitting alone at this same restaurant table on our anniversary while she was in Vegas with another man. Serenity was everything Kimberly had dreamed it would be. The lighting was perfect, the service was impeccable, and our table had the best view in the restaurant. We ordered wine, an expensive bottle that I definitely couldn't afford, and she seemed to relax for the first time in weeks. This is perfect, Max. Thank you for doing this. I wanted tonight to be special. We talked about safe topics during dinner. Her work, carefully avoiding any mention of Ryan. My plans to maybe open my own auto shop someday. A vacation we had talked about taking to New Mexico. For 2 hours, it almost felt like old times. But I couldn't forget why we were really there. When the waiter brought dessert, creme brulee that Kimberly had been craving, I decided it was time. Kim, I need to tell you something. She looked up from her dessert, and I could see a flicker of concern in her eyes. I've been thinking a lot about what you said on our anniversary, about how I don't have the right to tell you what to do because we're not married. Her expression softened. Max, I'm sorry I said that. I was stressed about the trip, and I shouldn't have taken it out on you. No, you were right. We're not married. We're just two people who have been living together and playing house for 5 years. That's not true. We're more than that. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a small black box. Kimberly's eyes widened, and I could see hope blooming across her face. For a split second, I almost felt sorry for her. I opened the box, but instead of a ring, there was a key inside. This is your key to our apartment. The hope on her face died instantly. Max, what? I know about Ryan. I know about Vegas. I know about the hotels, the restaurants, the lies. I know everything. Her face went white, then red, then white again. Max, I can explain. No explanations. I've spent the last 2 weeks following you around Denver, watching you build a relationship with another man while pretending to love me. I've seen enough. You followed me? There was indignation in her voice, which was almost funny. You've been cheating on me for 2 months, and you're upset that I followed you. She looked around the restaurant, probably realizing that we were having this conversation in public, in the exact place she had always dreamed of coming. The symbolism wasn't lost on either of us. I didn't mean for this to happen, she said quietly. But it did happen. And more importantly, it's still happening. You're still seeing him. You were probably with him yesterday before you came home to me. She didn't deny it. I packed your things. They're in boxes by the front door. Your key is in this box, and after tonight, I don't want to see you again. Max, please. Can't we talk about this? Can't we try to work through it? Work through what? The lying? The cheating? The fact that you've been living a double life for 2 months? The fact that all of our friends knew about your affair and said nothing? Tears started running down her cheeks, but I felt nothing. 2 months ago, seeing Kimberly cry would have broken my heart. Now it felt like watching a stranger. I love you, Max. I know I screwed up, but I love you. No, you don't. If you loved me, you never would have gotten on that plane to Vegas with Ryan. If you loved me, you would have broken up with me before you started an affair. If you loved me, you wouldn't have lied to my face every single day for 2 months. She reached across the table to grab my hand, but I pulled away. I'm going to pay the check, and then I'm leaving. You can call Ryan to pick you up, or take an Uber, or walk home. I don't care. But I'm done. I signaled for the waiter and handed him my credit card. The final bill was $400, more money than I should have spent, but it felt appropriate. This was the most expensive breakup in history. Max, please don't do this. We can go to counseling. I'll stop seeing Ryan. We can fix this. You should have thought about that before you decided to sleep with someone else. The waiter brought the receipt, and I signed it with a $100 tip. The poor guy probably sensed the tension at our table and deserved hazard pay. I stood up and looked down at Kimberly one last time. She was still beautiful, still the woman I had fallen in love with 5 years ago. But she was also a stranger to me now. Goodbye, Kimberly. I walked out of the restaurant without looking back, even though I could hear her calling my name. Other diners were staring, but I didn't care. Let them stare. Let them see what betrayal looks like. In the parking lot, I sat in my truck for 5 minutes, waiting for the emotional breakdown that never came. I felt empty, but not sad. Relieved, but not happy. It was like waking up from a long, complicated dream and realizing it was over. I drove home, fully expecting to find the apartment empty, but Kimberly's boxes were still by the door. She hadn't come home yet, which meant she was probably with Ryan, crying on his shoulder about her terrible ex-boyfriend who had embarrassed her in public. I poured myself a beer and sat on the couch, looking around at the space that had been ours for 3 years. Her absence was already palpable. No shoes by the door, no purse on the kitchen counter, no scented candles burning in the bedroom. It was just my apartment now. At 11 p.m., I heard a key in the lock. Kimberly walked in, and she looked like she had been crying for hours. Her makeup was smeared, her hair was disheveled, and she was carrying the black box with the key inside. I came to get my things, she said quietly. They're right there. Thank you for watching this video. I see that 99% of you are still watching videos without subscribing to the channel. Perhaps YouTube will no longer offer videos from this channel in the future, so I recommend subscribing. This will also allow me to see what stories you are interested in, which will motivate me to release new videos. Also, keep writing in the comments what stories you would like to hear. I try to read all the comments and choose topics for videos that appeal to the maximum number of subscribers. Now you have a playlist on your screen where you can find more stories that were released before you found this channel. You can also go to the channel and watch them there.